we can post this PD session for anybody who has not attended it. We'll also record our meetings for the next 2 days as well on the Tuesday sessions, those 3 sessions on Tuesday. You can find these videos on our YouTube page. Again, if you've not found our YouTube page yet or have seen the resources, definitely something to check out as the GSCS resource hub. And I think Carrie might be posting that in the chat right now, as well as the YouTube page. Definitely worth a follow. All of our videos will come out there as soon as we can get them up. Right now, I think we have about 50 videos. And I think what I would just suggest, it looks like everybody has everything muted. Video is muted, audio is muted, which is great. If you do have a question, Carrie and I will be scouring the chat to answer anything you might have. We are fighting over lunch who can answer faster. So you might get both of us answering your questions, which is good. But if you do have questions, we'll try to make sure we answer them as Chandra goes through everything. Again, you can always follow up with us after as well if you have additional questions. So I won't take up too much of your time, but I will turn it over to Chandra.
All right, good afternoon. Hope everyone had a great lunch. So the purpose of this session is just to go through how to clean up your classroom, close it down for end of the year, and then as well some tools and tricks and platforms you can use to help boost your student engagement. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. And we are going to start with the classroom cleanup. So anyone using Google Classroom this year, you were probably wondering what happens over summer and if students still have access to things. That is what this session is all about, how to make sure that we are limiting student access and limiting places where students can be where they aren't being monitored. So if you open up your Google Classroom, the first thing we want to do is to actually go into our gradebook and to make sure that we have returned all student work. Now what this does is it gives students access to their work again. As you know, when they submit something, it doesn't allow them to go in and edit it until you have returned it to them with their mark. So if you have any outstanding, someone's turned the lights out on us. If you have any, oh, there we go. Any outstanding student work, you're going to want to return that. Now you might see you've marked something and it's green and it's in draft form. Just click those 3 dots and you can press return. Now you can go through your entire class like this and scroll through checking out anything that's outstanding, or you could go through individually like this and just making sure you've returned something, looking for any attachments that maybe you haven't marked. Again, you can see stuff that is turned in that maybe you still need to mark, things you've returned, all there. Going back to our classroom. So that is step 1. Once you've done that, then what you want to do is you want to go into your classwork and you want to make sure that everything is organized in a nice manner. So just making sure that if you are joining us now, you have muted your microphone and turned off your video, just to save some bandwidth here. But going into your classwork and looking through, taking anything that maybe you didn't use or that was a practice and just deleting it, cleaning it up a bit, maybe reorganizing things into units just to make it easy on yourself for next year. Then once you've done that, we are going to go back to our main page. So this might take you a while to do, returning things might take you a while to do. Once you've done it though, go back to that classes icon. You're brought to this home page. And this is where you can decide what to do with your class moving forward. So your first option is to click those 3 dots at the top and to copy your class. When you hit that copy button, it will copy any assignment you had in there. It will even copy things on your stream, but it'll put everything into draft form. So nothing will be posted to your classroom. It'll all be a draft, and then you decide when you want to make it go live next year. When you copy it, students are not copied over. That is separate. You need to re-add in any students moving forward, but you'll have the same banner there. You will have, like I said, all of your assignments, anything in your stream that you have personally posted available for you to reuse. This,
You're being told to slow down.
sorry guys, I'm being too fast. So the second thing that you can do, so again, there's that copy button. If you copy it, it'll take a little bit to generate depending on how much stuff you have in your classroom, because it goes back into that classroom folder. It makes a brand new folder with copies of any assignment you have created. So just be aware, it'll take a while for it to generate. Now you also have that archive button right there. What archiving your class does is it actually changes where it is in your folder. So here are all my live classes that I'm in, but if I scroll down, I have a section that is archived classes. When I click on this, this is any previous class that I've been enrolled in that's been archived or that I've taught. Now, I can delete these permanently by clicking on the three dots and pressing delete. I can restore them once I've archived them. Or again, I can make a copy if I didn't get to do that before I archived it. So what kind of access do students have when I archive a class? Well, here's an example. This is a class that I'm in that has been archived. You can see I can go in, I can still see any activity, right? I see the headers, I can see attachments that are in there, materials. But if I go to the stream, there's nowhere that I can write or type. I can't comment on anything. I can't add private comments here. It's all shut down. So it's a completely locked down classroom that I can just see the shell of it. I could see people if they were still here, my teachers, and email them. But that's basically it. So if you leave your students in your classroom and you archive it, there's really no damage they can do. They can't type anything, they can't submit anything, they can't contact you. It is just a shell of your classroom.
Question about draft assignments.
Draft,
Do they get copied?
draft assignments also get copied. And again, they just save as a draft as any other assignment would. So it doesn't matter if your assignments have gone live or not, it will copy the entire class over. Going back into, I guess, my classes here, one last thing to be aware of. So if, let's say you're a high school teacher and you really don't want students being able to go in and see previous assignments of things you've posted, you're not going to want to keep them as students when you archive your class. Instead, what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to the people in your classroom before archiving it, select all, and remove all students. Now, just be aware when you do this, all of their grades, everything will be removed with them. You won't have access. Just a reminder to mute your mic and turn your video off. So you won't have access to see any of their work anymore or to view their grades. If you add them back in after this point, all of their work reappears as well as their grades. But removing students before archiving it makes it so that they can't go into the classroom at all. Anything to add to that?
Just about clicking on links once it's been archived. They can still access the content in the links,
Yep.
but they can't communicate or hand assignments in.
Yeah, so anything that you've posted, again, in that archived class, students can still go in. I am a student in this class here. I can go in, I can click on any of these links. They all still work. However, I can't comment. I can't hand anything in. That is all locked down to me. So if you want to keep things open over summertime for your students, you can just let them know that they'll just have to go to the archive section to access their class, and they can still access any links you've posted, maybe for athletics or other things.
Why would we want to, the difference between copy and archiving it?
So the difference between copying and archiving. Copying your class is preparing yourself for next year. So if you're teaching the same grade and you want to maybe reuse some awesome assignments you've done, when you press that copy button, it makes the exact same shell of the class you already have. So there will be no students in that class, but any assignment you have created will be populated into your new class. You can then change the name of it. You can make assignments go live or delete the ones you didn't like, but it just gives you an opportunity, instead of starting from scratch, to kind of have an outline moving forward into next year. You don't need to copy it. You can copy it after you've archived it, but if you liked some of the things you did, it's just an easier way to set yourself up for next year. Any other questions?
Elementary split classes work the same as straight grades. You can copy and archive exactly the same way. Just going through here some of the same questions I think we've answered. If we've missed your question, feel free to throw it into the chat again. Trying to scan through here.
Any other questions about copying, or if we haven't answered it, write it again, please. Can you set up a fake student? Setting up a fake student, you can put yourself in someone else's class, but you can't use an external email. IT is not going to generate fake students for you to go in. So basically, the best way to see a student view is to ask to be put in someone else's class. Ask one of your colleagues if you can be a student in one of their classes.
Why archive at all?
We want to archive just to make sure that the expectation is not that you are working through summer. We want to respect your summers. With that, if you don't archive your class, students can go in, they can comment on things, they can hand stuff in, they can contact you. We don't want that. Also, the expectation then is if you have a platform open that you are monitoring it. So if you keep your classroom open, the expectation would be that you as a teacher would monitor it all through summer. That is not what we expect you to do. So we do want all teachers archiving their classes.
Just a quick question about the test students again. Recommendation, maybe buddy up with a colleague so that you can be test students for each other. Allows you to see both views without, the need to access maybe an actual student, or you have your own child that you can use as a test. I use mine for guinea pig quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we were also test students for each other as an ET team, and that was really helpful to troubleshoot.
As well, we do have the YouTube video of the student view that Mark just posted.
That's right.
Nicole, I see, can we just remove students from the class rather than archiving it? No, that would not be best practice. You can do that, but I would never suggest using the same classroom again. Reason being is because once you make an assignment go live, you lose all opportunity to go back in and edit any of your assignments to make a copy for each student. So you can add in all brand new students. However, all those assignments are live for them immediately. You could only imagine how overwhelming that would be as a student going into a fully populated Google Classroom. As well, you can't do our best practice of like making copies for each student, slow release of assignments, different things like that. So do not delete all your students and add new students into the same classroom. That will not work out in your favor. So yes, best practice, number 1, copy it. Number 2, remove students if you want. You don't need to. And number 3, archive it. Just remember first, return all their work so it's not being stored in your drive so that they have access to it again, and clean anything up before you copy it, just because the more stuff you have, the longer it takes to copy, and it stores all of that stuff in your drive again. So if you don't need something, there's no use in copying it over.
Question about having the same students next year. So same thing. This year's classroom has their work attached to this year's classroom. If you continue on with the same students next year, you're going to confuse things probably quite a bit and have overlap with your assignments. It'll end up being a mess. So best practice would be to start fresh every year. And co-teacher in a class.
If you're a co-teacher in a class, I would say whoever is in charge of the class should be the one, the main teacher should be the one who's archiving it, making a copy. However, if you're a co-teacher in someone's class and you want to make a copy for yourself, you can do that. So if you decide as grade-alikes that you want to make a super class, put all of your stuff into it, dump it all in there, and then copy it for each of you. You can definitely do that, and then you have the ability to reuse any posts from that class in any of your other classes. That was a bit of a mouthful. I hope you followed that one. Goody, you want to take your camera off there, bud?
Just trying to figure it out here.
Bottom, press the camera button.
Not the hang up though.
There we go.
Why return work?
Thank you, Chandra.
I can only bug him because I've known him for a long time.
Okay, so why return student work?
So you want to return work basically because when a student hands something in to you, they can't go back into it, they can't see it, they can't edit it. So by returning it, you give them access to their own documents again. Now, this is a story that's been going on forever. We can't actually keep student work. The same thing would go for a digital platform. So just like you wouldn't keep someone else's work in your own classroom, the paper copies, we aren't actually allowed to keep the work in our digital classrooms either. So by returning it to them, that gives them their own permissions back. It's being stored in their drive, not ours.
Right, it's about ownership. You have to give back their work to them because they own it. If you don't return it, then it's still sitting in your drive and you basically are in possession of it and owning it. So you need to hand that ownership back over. Okay, some more questions coming up here. Copy and saves your work in your drive, but you cannot access the class from copy. Correct. Question. Maybe Kristen, you can maybe clarify that. I'm not sure what you're asking there, so we'll maybe just open it. Never mind, it takes a few minutes. Answered your own, it looks like. Not sure how to add, how co-teachers can both make a copy. Can you walk us through that?
So first of all, I'm going to answer the one about the stream. Assignments and things that were posted like that or material that you just posted on the stream will copy over. But like messages to students, announcements, that stuff will not copy. It's basically only things that are being stored as, let's say, documents in your drive that will copy over. So just to clarify that, it's not like any classroom announcement you've ever made is going to copy over. Just those posts, like the document assignment things will copy over.
Where do I find my archive classes?
Archive classes are using those 3 lines, scrolling down to where it says archived.
Up in the top left corner there. Okay. Co-teachers, can you walk through co-teachers again? Both making a copy. Same process.
It's the same process. It doesn't look different at all. In fact, I am a teacher who was just added to this classroom here today. I can click on it and I can press copy. I can archive it. You have the same permissions because Google acts like you are collaborating as teachers. So same permissions to do either or. One question about removing students. You can remove them after as well. Ooh, that's not what I want to do. So I can go in and I can't. I lied. You cannot remove students after archiving. Once you've archived it, it is there as a shell and they can always access it.
Then Jeffrey has a question to clarify. If I remove the students and archive the class, will they still have access to their assignments in their personal drive?
Yes, you don't own anything that the students have created. They own it all, so that stays with them until they delete it. So by you archiving the classroom, it does not change anything for them.
We are looking to reuse assignments. Is there any way of preventing students who were in the class previously from sharing the work that was returned to them?
No.
Just like any other hard copy they might take with them.
Yeah, that would be equivalent to a student using a test that you handed back to them last year and giving it to someone else. The only difference is they have a digital copy now instead of a hard copy.
Great questions. I think we've got most of them there. Again, this information is available in the video on the YouTube channel. So if we went too quickly and you want to revisit it, I think the video itself is about 6 minutes long, so you can pause and rewind. Quickly, looks like Trevor, will deleted assignments be copied over?
No, they will not be. So only drafts or assignments that you made go live, copy over. Students, does it appear back to their to-do list? No, it doesn't go back to their to-do list. When you return it, they just get a notification that their grade was submitted and that their work has been returned. That's it. It just stores in their drive. They can't, or they don't have the opportunity to go back into their to-do list and to recomplete it. Any other questions before we move on?
Can we leave our classrooms open over the summer if we have students who would like to do more work? Do we have to archive for IT reasons?
You don't have to archive for IT reasons, but
Strongly recommend that you do.
yes, we do strongly recommend you do. Number one, again, to reiterate, the expectation would be there from students and parents then that you are still communicating with them, that you are still monitoring the classroom. As well, if you're keeping it open, the expectation from us would be that you are still monitoring the classroom, just because we want to create safe places online for students, and we don't want an open area where students can be unmonitored. So I know that in Google Classroom, it's pretty tight in the way that students really can't get into too much here, especially if you turn your stream posting off, but you would still need to be monitoring that platform daily, and we wouldn't expect that of you over summer. But if you archive it, students can still go in, they can still see work, they can still do it on their own, they just can't submit it to you.
Can you unarchive a class after you have archived it?
You can unarchive the class. So when you go into your archived classes and you click on those three dots again, you can press that restore button. But keep in mind, if you do have students in there, it makes it go live for all of those students again. So it pops up in their live classes and they can go in all over again.
Any way to save the gradebook as a separate document?
Great question, Trevor. Thanks for asking all the hard ones. You know what?
So,
I've never tried to be very honest, I've never tried to save my gradebook. I've also never seen anything in my searching about saving it or exporting it. So
archived, can you still see it?
if it's archived, you can still see it if you keep your students in. But as soon as you take your students out, they are gone.
So maybe take a screen capture if you want to save it and save it as a file that way.
Yes.
Okay. What about assignments where kids did not click the hand in or the submit button? It doesn't always give a return option. That's a good question too.
Where is that one?
Aaron McQuaid, right under Trevor.
Assignments where kids did not click the hand in. You can click on stuff and return it, even if they didn't submit something. But for the most part, if they didn't press that submit button, then it won't matter. You won't have to return anything. I know
It's not registering.
sometimes students press the submit button because they're annoyed that they're always getting notifications that they haven't handed in work. But just like I did there, you can just press that return button, and even though there's no work there, you're still returning their documents. Really, you don't need to do that. There's no reason for it because there's no work that you need to give permission back to them for. So that would just be busy work that is unnecessary.
Question about retiring, still subbing, wanting to access Google Drive files from classroom to a personal external backup.
You always have access to your files. You just need to log into your Google Drive. They are not going anywhere.
As a GSCS employee, even as a substitute, you still retain your GSCS credentials, so you would still have access to that drive. You can always download things from your Google Drive to a USB if you prefer, just to have something almost like a personal copy, I suppose. Okay, a couple more quick questions, and then we'd like to move along to engagement tools. So I assume if you remove the students, you need to change the class code to prevent them from logging back in. Actually, that's a great question. You can always change your class code and make it inactive as well. So that was shown this morning, how to turn off and reset.
Yeah, it's in your settings here. Right in your class code, you can reset it. But if your class is archived, it's not live. They can't go in there. They can't use a code and populate themselves. That's another reason why it's so important to do. So realistically, if you archive your class, if you remove them first, it's a dead classroom. You can go in and see it, but students cannot access it anymore.
Just a quick question about if you've returned work back to students, can they then send it back to you again after it's already been graded? They can go back and forth several times, but once you've archived it, again, that back and forth stops. We start deleting material, and I don't want to save a copy from the classwork before I copy it. Will students be receiving notification of material changes? Will it delete it from the grades?
Yes. If you delete it, it is gone. I don't think that students will receive any notifications that you've deleted it, to be honest, but it will be gone from your classroom.
Great questions. I think we're going to move on because we are at the halfway point of our time session and we want to be mindful of everyone's time today.
Yeah. Going on?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So our next presentation is kind of about student engagement, and what I'm going to use to present it is PearDeck. Now, PearDeck is a great platform. It's right in Google Slides. It's an add-on. So when I click on my add-on button within my slides, I can go to get add-ons, or even right here, it should actually appear for all of you because you have it already added. And you can just click to open PearDeck add-on. You can see I use it enough that it stays at the top for me. However, clicking on that add-on section in your Google Slides, this will only work in Google Slides, and then going to PearDeck and open PearDeck add-on. Now I'll talk a little bit more about PearDeck in the presentation, but you can see that when I click that, it just brings up this nice small little toolbar on the side. And what it does is it allows me to make any slide engaging with students. So it allows me to make them interactive. I have text options here where people can write to me on the slides. You can do multiple choice, numbers, you can do draggable options, or even drawing. Right now in the premium one, you can also add in audio to every slide. However, that will be ending. You can pay to keep the premium, but basically audio is the only one that disappears. As well, you're going to lose access to some of their templates. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start the lesson and show you what it can do. So You can run Pear Deck synchronously, which means all together with your students. So I could do this in a meet with my students, or you could run it asynchronously, meaning you give them access to go through it on their own at their own time. The beautiful part is that it actually works the best when you're doing it in person because you can project it to a smartboard and it will only show the teacher, the name of the students, and for all the other students in your classroom, they'll be able to see each other's answers on a smartboard without each other's names. So I'm going to press Start Lesson. I'm going to choose Instructor Paced Activity because we are going to do this all together. And start a new session. It'll make you log into your Google account. Now what it's going to do is it's going to give me a code. So we've never tested it with a group this big. There's nowhere online that tells me how many individuals I can fit in this Pear Deck, but we're going to give it a try. Everyone can go to joinpd.com. So type in your web browser, new tab, joinpd.com. And then what you are going to do in this little box here, once you've logged in with your Google, is you are going to put in this code. And I will copy it into the chat. So joinpd.com, and you can put in the code CCRRV. I am going to let Carrie show you her screen from now on, and she will have the student view. Just in the top though here, you can see as the presenter, I can see exactly who's all in it. So that's pretty neat. If I were to click that, it would give me a list of names as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to let Carrie take over so that you can see the student view. Okay, so lots of people still joining, which is awesome.
Can everyone see?
Can everyone see Carrie's
Yeah.
screen?
Okay, so if you weren't able to join as a student, then you can just follow along. And I'm just a student, as Chandra still has control as a teacher. I can't click ahead and control the pace of this presentation. So if you weren't able to join for whatever reason, you can just watch along on my screen. And Chandra would walk through as she would a teacher, kind of the rest of the presentation that she has.
Yeah. All right, so if I were to do this on my Meet with my students, what I would have asked my students to do would be to install the Splitscreen Extension, and that would allow the students to see me on their screen, on half of their screen, and it would allow them to see the presentation on the other half. So I would tell them to turn that split screen on, we would split our screens, they'd be able to see me and the presentation. So going through, my first slide says, what has been the greatest challenge of online teaching? You can see that you can all answer on here. So as you're answering, I see everyone live typing. I see your name attached to it. I also see the icon of how you're feeling today. So I know if someone has a red face of not being so happy, that maybe their answer is attributed to that. So the learning curve, motivation of students, missing the kids, teaching students and teaching my own children, feeling distant from the community, engagement, technology, balancing work and home life, student motivation, not having feedback from students, missing collaborative and discussions, lots of learning new technology, balancing work and home life, staying connected to colleagues, so lots of the same responses here. Parent engagement, yeah. So once again, I can see all these responses. You can put multiple responses, just an example of how you could use this with your students. Going to the next slide. So when we teach with a purpose and use meaningful tools, the projects become engaging and the assessment follows naturally. We had a lot of feedback about finding it difficult to find the right assessment, but really the purpose is to find the right way of delivering, what am I trying to say? Content delivery, yeah. So posting worksheets online is not the desired distance learning experience. It can be the right tool for certain things, but we don't want to limit ourselves to only posting PDFs or only posting work documents. We want to find different ways to engage students and to keep them coming back. So 4 steps to engaging them. Number 1, communication. On that other slide, so many of you said communicating was so difficult. So whether it's synchronous, meaning all together, or asynchronous, meaning at different times, communicating with our students is so, so important. That can look like a forms check-in. That can look like a meeting one-on-one or small group or whole class. It can just be a little comment on your Google Classroom stream directed to one student where they can respond back. Lots of different ways, but we know that by communicating with our students and checking in, it'll encourage them to be engaged in our classrooms and to come back. The second thing is digestible material. When we're posting PDFs into our Google Classroom or Microsoft Word documents or other things like that, it becomes really difficult for students to go in and to manipulate those documents. So when they try and open it up, they can't type directly in them. Sometimes they need to use various apps to open it. It can just be really frustrating. So making sure that what we're posting is in a way that when the student receives it, they can easily go through that material. The third thing is community. A bunch of you said that you even miss your colleagues. The students feel the same way about their classmates, and you know that. So how can we give a sense of community on our online platform? And that really comes from even finding ways where students can share work with each other, where they can comment on each other's work. And that isn't always the easiest, but there are lots of platforms out there where you can collaborate with each other and encourage collaboration with students. One great thing that is hopefully coming next year, which will make this easier, is we're hoping by September the new Meet update will be out, and that would include breakout spaces for students. So you could do group work right within a meeting and have different breakout rooms. The last one is accountability. So going back to that assessment piece and making sure that you are doing assessment even though it is online. And that can look different. It can.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, I'll switch it. So the assessment can look very different depending on what you're doing. It can even just be feedback to a student. But if you're not assessing anything, they don't feel like there's any reason for them to complete the work. So I'm being asked to show the teacher view of the presentation, which I will do now. All right. So here I have 4 different tools that you can use if you want to get a little creative with student engagement. The first one is Waitlet. So I had mentioned it's always nice when students are able to go in and see each other's work. That would be a great example of how you can use Waitlet. So you can click on the icons in my presentation. If you click on the research icon here, it will redirect you to a Waitlet page. That is an example of a student research project. So they could share this link with other classmates. Classmates could go in and read anything going on in this Waitlet. What this is basically they took a bunch of different articles from online, they posted them all to this page. It is just a content kind of dump, but they also wrote a little bit about it. This is a great example of what you could do as a teacher. So let's say we were doing a project on allergies. You could go in and you could first curate all the sites that you wanted your students to use, put it in here so that they're not just using Wikipedia or other sites. You could direct them to your Waitlet page, and then you know that they're getting their information from a great source. This would be especially handy for our younger years when they're just starting to do some work online. The second icon, if you click it, is an example of a class project using Waitlet. So what this teacher did is they just created an open Waitlet and gave their students the link. It's locked down to everyone else. Only students with the link can access it. And what all the students did is they made these awesome presentations on young individuals who have made a difference in the world. So each of these presentations you can click on. The students could go through each other's work. This was using Adobe Spark. We have a video on that as well. And you can see it's just a neat way to do a presentation. And again, the whole class can see it.
As well, Mark has noted in the chat that the video for Waitlet is also linked there that we created.
It is on the Waitlet bar. So if you want to know how to use Waitlet, you can click on that top title and it'll bring you to the YouTube page on how to use it. So Pear Deck, this is what we are currently using. And Pear Deck allows you to make slides interactive. So I have a few examples here, and I'll keep my teacher view on, so just be aware your name will be attached to it and others will be able to see. But try it out. This is an example for early learning. You can actually draw right on the slides. I can scroll through. I can see students doing work live. It's neat. They can also use text like this. If you have a stylus, obviously this would be a little easier to write on. But in my teacher view, I can just scroll through and I can see all of the students' work. So I could be giving them some feedback live as they're going through it. Moving on to the next slide, here's another example, again using the drawing tool. Just label the clock. And as a teacher, again, a great way where we could be on a meeting together and I could be providing them feedback as they're labeling the clock. Then it says correct the sentence. So a grammar lesson here. You teachers are getting way too excited for this one. I can feel it. I like how some individuals chose to bust out the red. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm going to switch it up. One more example, perspective. And you could take this a lot of different ways. You could get students to draw in here. You could get them to type in here. And again, you could be talking through with your students this entire time, or you could give it to them asynchronously and go through it after. So all of these were templates I used within within Pear Deck, but at the top, my first slide was just a questions one, and I just made a regular slide that I already had. I just added on Pear Deck to it. So super simple tool to use in lots of different ways. Going to our next slide, this is Book Creator. Now, Book Creator is basically a fun way to create a book. So you can do it through science experiments. You could get students to create their own stories or comics, biographies, artifact collections, a how-to guide. Lots of different things you can do with it. If you click on the icon here, you are brought to the book. So here is an example. There's audio here. I can click on my audio.
How Juniper joined the family.
I don't know.
How Juniper joined the family.
I don't know if you guys heard the audio or not because I'm not using a different microphone. But you can click through the book. You can click on the audio yourself. You could make your own book to students. I know a bunch of you are probably wondering, oh my gosh, what a cute dog. Yes, this is my quarantine puppy, and she is now part of the family. But a great thing about Book Creator is that it actually goes to a bookshelf. So you would give your students a link to the Book Creator. It would go to a library, and students would be able to read each other's books. So what a fun way to get them to engage with each other again and to have that community sense. And like I said, it would be really neat even to do a lab report for science. Instead of doing a lab write-up, you could use a Book Creator. They can add in YouTube videos, they can add in images from the web or their own stuff, take their own videos of doing the science experiment or the lab, and then do their write-up on the pages. You can really design it however you want. My example was very, very simple compared to what the platform can actually do.
Can you edit the language in PearDeck from pre-made slides, Taylor?
Yes, absolutely. If you are using a template in PearDeck, you can edit it however you want. All the text is editable, the images, so you can use something that's pre-made and make it your own.
Again, Mark's posting the video links to the specific tools in the chat, so you can feel free to revisit those shorter videos if we're going too quickly for you.
Going to our next slide, which is Flipgrid. So Flipgrid would be another way, again, to get students to engage and collaborate with each other. You can click on the little QR code here, and you'll be brought to an example of a Flipgrid. You could use this for book reports, science experiments again, current events, interviews, exit slips, end of year, favorite memories, bunch of different things. If you click on that QR code, you're brought to a grid. You'll have to log in with your Google. And then you can watch my little intro.
Hi guys, I know some of you may be feeling like this lately. Teaching online can be pretty wearing, so I want to know what has been your biggest challenge while teaching online, and maybe tell me what is one tool you would like to start using and how you plan on using it with your students.
So what has been your biggest challenge teaching online? One tool that you would like to try out and how you would use it. You can watch other students' responses here. There is lots you can do with editing your face, adding in images, blurring the images. You just press that big plus button here. You can record your own response. You can watch other students' responses, and then you can reply to them as well. A teacher can set this from anywhere from like 30 seconds, I believe, to 10 minutes long. You choose how long your students get, and they get to go in and go through it and respond to each other. You can also limit the access there so that you have to review videos before they're posted, or you can just let students go live with their videos. Not live, but post. So that brings us to the end. If you click on this Flipgrid icon here, you're brought to the YouTube video on how to use it. It'll give you a kind of an in-depth tour of Flipgrid.
Also in the chat.
Also in the chat, Mark has posted in the chat.
Just going to quickly go through and make sure we haven't missed any questions.
Yeah, in the last slide here, if anyone wants to write any questions too as well, you can, and I'll be able to see it. Where is the split screen extension? So we do have that video on our YouTube page as well. But if you see in the icon here, it is called Tab Resize. You would just go to your web store, and then you can click that Tab Resize, and I could split my screen to see multiple screens at once. So again, the icon looks like this. You would press that plus button, go to the web store, click on the Chrome Web Store one, and just type in tab resize, and you would press add to Chrome. And then that just appears at the top. You just click it when you need to use it.
Mark's also posted the link directly to it in the Chrome website in the chat. I just noticed here that Steve has a question or just a comment, I guess, about the functionality of not being able to email directly within Google Classroom. That has to do with the way our email addresses are actually configured on the IT end of things, on the IT side or end of things. And so we still have to maintain our Outlook email and directory there, and it doesn't break email because they're not true Gmail accounts. So it is a little bit cumbersome. We understand that. It's a discussion that is ongoing, but it's not as easy as just flipping the switch. We're afraid that there might be other implications to go down that road. And so we have to know more about what we're doing. Right, investigate that further. Any more questions? Andrea, on your screen here that I can't see?
No.
Yeah, Michael, I know actually we're in the same room, so if I have my mic on, it would be squealing. So I'm trying to talk loud. Hopefully you hear me.
Okay, so just the question about Google Forms. There's no easy answer for Google Forms. It does require students to press submit and then to go in and press turn in. We know that Google is always making their product better, but unfortunately right now there's not a workaround to it. That is just what it is. There are multiple steps to using Google Forms. Any other questions? Yeah, so as Mark said, it was rated high on the things to change in future updates. And this year, we've definitely seen that from Google. Things were changing rapidly, trying to adapt as best they could for the high demand and to make things as easy as they can on students and teachers. So keep an eye out as well in the fall. I'm sure we will have a PD on Meet. We have heard the rumblings of a lot of updates on Google Meet. There will be breakout spaces. You'll be able to use a whiteboard within Meet, raise your hand features. What else was there? Polling, yeah. So lots of new features, hopefully coming out by September. And if there are no other questions, I think that is it from us. If you do have follow-up questions, please feel free to email us. Mark?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you again so much, everybody. It looks like we'll get out of here a few minutes early. Thank you again. Lots of amazing questions. Clearly, this is a group who's been using Google Classroom pretty extensively. I would definitely say take a look at that GSCS Google Resource Hub. It has all of our videos as well as guides. And also, I would just suggest liking the YouTube channel, either on your personal or private accounts. You'll get notified of any new videos we have. It was fairly frequent where we were doing multiple videos a day. Obviously, we slowed down a bit, but I think we might have some more work coming up for us. So if there's anything you know we absolutely didn't cover or need a video on or find a really great tool that's worked, especially for engagement for you and your students, please do send that to us. We will try our hardest to answer all the emails, but obviously I'm sure you're aware that it's a busy time for us as well, but we will absolutely do our best. So a huge thank you to everybody, and obviously a huge thank you to Chandra and Carrie for kind of leading this presentation, and I hope it was helpful for you. Please, we do have these PDs reoccurring on Thursday. as well as the Cyber School hybrid. So maybe refer other staff members who aren't able to join. Also, these videos, as they're being recorded, will be uploaded to our YouTube page. So you can also just refer back to those there as well. So I think with that being said, I think we'll just end it there. And have a wonderful rest of your day.